Silicon Valley: technology, art, green, and sustainability.
Welcome to another episode of Silicon Valley Tech, Art, Green, and Sustainability, SVTAGS.org. Today I have with me two gentlemen from Oregon. Thank you so much for coming down, and I hope you're going to be traveling a lot this week and enjoying.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having us on the show.
Thank you. And Jesse and Mark, and I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name, so how do you say the last name?
Frohnmayer.
Frohnmayer. I was going to pronounce it something completely different. German last name?
Yeah, it is a German name.
Okay. And Jess?
Fittipaldi.
Fittipaldi.
Yeah,
Fittipaldi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Italian.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, Italian. So you started up a company, and I was just saying, is it a startup if it's been around a while? But tell us a little bit about
when you're still pre-market.
Yeah.
It would be certainly qualify as a startup.
And it's
though
electric.
We have been working on it. I've been working on it now almost 9 years.
And it's an electric vehicle company. We met at the Electric Vehicle Entrepreneurs of Silicon Valley, which is a great program. And you're the marketing person, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Marketing
Business
and sales.
Yep.
But before, in the name of the company?
It's called Arcimoto.
Arcimoto. So not Arcimoto, Arcimoto.
Well, if you're Italians can pronounce it Arcimoto.
Arcimoto, okay. And we got to test drive it. It was fabulous. I love it. I'm going to have to put a down on it, right? But before we go there, tell us about your backgrounds and what you guys did before, what you're doing now. Do we want to start with you?
Sounds good.
Jess?
Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Before this, I was working for a professional engineering firm, and as life progressed along, I felt the inclination to start working on stuff that mattered. And I met Mark, and he was developing this vehicle, and I felt like this was a real solution to a problem that exists in the world right now, which is facing the carbon emissions problem and how we get around and how to make cities better, a better living situation for everybody. And so I couldn't pass this up as an opportunity to just feel like I was making a difference.
And are you an engineer then?
Yes.
So it was an engineering company that was working on car stuff, or was it working on?
No, it's large institutional project management stuff.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. That's pretty interesting background from that to, and then you had a completely different background too.
It's a pretty natural transition from making computer games to vehicles on the road. There's a long and storied history of such moves. So I was a computer game developer pretty much for most of my life.
What kind of games?
It ran the spectrum. I started programming when I was 7 years old on the Apple II. Ended up going to work for a subsidiary of a major game maker doing 3D simulations, network multiplayer games. And then in 2001, got rolling with a new startup that I co-founded with a few other guys called Garage Games. And there we did both game engine technology and then also made kind of indie games to prove out the technology that we were developing.
Okay, what's an indie game?
Well, an indie game would be a small group of people on a shoestring putting together
so like an independent film, independent
games,
okay.
Or independent films, independent
I'm not a gamer,
music.
Sorry, I had to ask.
And the particular problem we had that we saw when we started Garage Games was that you think of if guitars cost $500,000, how many independent bands would there be? Not very many. And that was really the problem that games had in the late 90s, early 2000s, is that professional grade game technology cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to license, and it was far out of reach of small independent teams. And that was really what Garage Games was created to help bridge, is to put tools and technology, build community, and then ultimately publishing for startup game makers.
And so that kind of segues into why did you want to start a car company?
Well,
or electric vehicle company?
So Arcimoto is not a car company. We're building a three-wheeled electric motorcycle. But the transition was that we sold Garage Games in 2007. And I think very much like Jesse, I sort of started looking at the world and thinking, how can I do something with my time that's really meaningful, that addresses one or more of the big problems that we face as a culture. And at the same time that I was really looking for next things to get involved in, I was also looking for a personal transportation solution and not finding it. So
So you're looking at electric vehicles
yeah.
and motorcycles and didn't really see anything that kind of fit your needs.
Well, I didn't want a two-wheeled motorcycle that couldn't carry stuff, was unstable, hard for other people to see, and so on. And I didn't want a full-size car, because a big part of the transportation problem that we have today is that our roads are choked with 4,000-pound, very large form vehicles that are being driven by one person at a time to go to work or go to the gym or go get groceries. And so I wanted something that was going to be smaller form, much lighter weight, much more efficient than any car on the road, and as a result also be something that would be affordable, not just for me. I wanted to adopt something that if I adopted it, other people could adopt it too. So it had to be cool and practical and approachable by everybody.
Let's bring up that first slide since we're talking about it. Let's look at it. So these are different. Tell us what this is here.
Yeah, so this is the progression of development, starting in the upper left, moving across prototypes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8 on the bottom. And it really is, it speaks to the iterative process that has been Arcimoto. Really building, our approach has been to build electric vehicles and then test them out in the marketplace with potential consumers, test them out on the road, get feedback, and then iterate to the next step. And what you don't see with each of those are obviously all the changes that are happening under the covers. The first step was really just that first kind of dartboard against the wall, lightweight, incredibly fun, three-wheeled vehicle. But it didn't have protection from the elements. It couldn't carry very much stuff. It wasn't very stable at high speed. And so really the process has been just that rinse and repeat and moving from step to step to step to get to a final product. The first half of the development process was adding the capabilities that people wanted. Right.
So why not hybrid?
It's just in terms of going and, there are two reasons really. One is complexity, that developing one powertrain is a challenging enough task. Developing two simultaneous powertrains is a huge engineering leap. And you're always carrying around an extra powertrain. So the notion with this vehicle was to ultimately make something that was very simple.
And how many pounds again is it?
Well, so what we started with on generation 1 was about 800 pounds. What we're going to end up with on the final product is going to be probably just under 1,000 pounds.
Okay.
All the stuff in the middle, I mean, ultimately we got it. The third one we built was 2,400 pounds, and it was like, hey, we way overshot. So yeah, add capabilities and then subtract all the extra stuff.
We're going to bring up the next slide. Again, we met at the Electric Vehicle Entrepreneurs, and we got to test. There was maybe like 20 or 30 of us that got to test drive it. And on your website, and we can bring that down. It was really fun to ride with you in that. And I guess we didn't get the video of that. It didn't compress in time. But
we'll have to go get another one today.
Yeah, there you go. So, but it was really fun. It was almost a little scary going around the corner when we were at like 40 miles and we slowed down and turned because it's really lightweight. So why lightweight again and smaller?
Well, it's really that whole less is more.
Okay.
Electric vehicles are all about power to weight ratio. And so you can either add more power or you can reduce weight. And both of those have a similar effect on that ratio. And so in order to build something that is affordable and incredibly efficient and also very, very fun to drive, the goal is to remove as much weight as possible.
Well, it was really fun.
And you got to ask, how much machine does 200 pounds of dude need to go get a couple gallons of milk and some cereal at the grocery store?
Right. Well, we were just talking about my business club, which I do marketing consulting, and in 2007 I had a cancer research doctor that had developed a drug for stage 4 ovarian cancer, and we met at Starbucks. But it was really uncomfortable for me to meet with him at Starbucks when he was talking about clinical trials of real women. So I was looking for a remote office space, which is like a mile from my house, which is the Capitol Club. So it doesn't make sense to drive a huge vehicle down there when you could take something like this.
And particularly if you're burning gas, the least efficient you can run a gas-powered vehicle is those first few miles where it's warming up and stop and go traffic. which makes up the bulk of the driving that people do on a regular basis. So all of that very much points towards the electric drive as the solution. And then the question just becomes, how do you really maximize the capabilities of the vehicle at the same time that you minimize weight and cost?
Let's bring up another slide. This next one, yeah, so there's two of them side by side. Are they basically the same then?
These are our first two alpha prototypes.
Okay. And they don't have a cover on it, but we'll talk about that. I guess there is a little bit of a cover. One looks smaller than the other, or is it just the angle?
It's just the perspective.
It's the perspective.
Yep.
So we can pull this down, and let's talk about order and delivery. And we can't really say cost, but as opposed to, let's say, other vehicles out there, is it a lot more? Is it about the same cost?
We're just now seeing the advent of the first affordable electric cars about to enter the marketplace, and we're going to be about a third of that price for the base model.
And right now
delivering.
you're delivering for the kind of, is it investment people, the first round?
So our very first vehicles are going to be going out, we're calling it the Signature Series fleet.
Signature, okay.
And those are going out to some just high profile early adopters up and down the West Coast.
Okay, and then the next stage you'll have people order, and then when will those be delivered?
Yes, so we're actually accepting reservations on the website now for general production. And we're planning on kicking that off right around the end of this year. So having the first pilot vehicles move through the production line.
And I forget how many you said you're going to do in the first year.
It's so the goal is to ramp to 10,000 vehicles per year as expeditiously as possible.
And I'm behind on the slides, so let's pull up the next one. I love the name of this one. I think was California Dreaming. So it looks like somebody maybe have loaded up their what is that, a wind sail, and went out to the beach, and it's just big enough for that kind of load. So let's pull that down. So what can you fit in it then? I mean, are there basket add-ons? I mean, tell us about.
So the vehicle itself is a very flexible platform. Because it's a tandem vehicle, you can get in and out on either side, which means you could run a work ladder or 2x4s down one side of the vehicle. You can put a bike rack on it. You can put a golf club rack that carries 2 sets of golf bags. You can carry many bags of groceries. The back seat will fold flat, so you can do a Costco run. I've gone on camping trips where I've really just packed out the vehicle with tons of gear for a week-long trip.
Okay, we need a picture of that to post on Twitter.
We'll send it your way. So for a small form vehicle, it has really a ton of storage.
And how much weight can it carry then?
The vehicle itself can carry about 500-600 pounds, including the passengers.
Okay.
And then we're also going to have a trailer hitch option for a motorcycle trailer.
So I'm going to move to battery because I think we're kind of skipped ahead a little bit here, but talk about the battery. And I'm going to pull up another slide here, even though this isn't the slide. So the front there I thought was the battery. That's not the battery.
No, actually, and this is something that's different about the SRK than most three-wheel vehicles. Most three-wheel vehicles put the drivetrain in the back or put the drive system on the rear wheel. The SRK actually has a dual motor front wheel drive. So one motor for controlling each of the two front wheels. The differential function is all done in software, and what you're seeing there, what you saw there on the screen, is the main motor controller that sits right above the dual motor gearbox, the dual motors and the gearbox that connects them to the wheels. The battery in the vehicle is actually it's the big rectangular box that you sit astride, and so the drivetrain and the battery are both running right along the bottom plane of the vehicle. And right along the center line, which gives it a really nice low center of gravity. So you really want to, in a three-wheeled, 2 wheels in front, 1 wheel in back vehicle, you want to push the weight low and then forward bias it between the two front wheels to make it a very stable ride.
So how long will it stay charged with the charge that's there, the battery that's there? And I think there's an upgrade, right?
Yeah, so we want the vehicle to have a 70-mile range, and the upgrade would be a 130-mile range. And that fits into the use case of the vehicle. Most people drive 29 miles a day.
Right, I mean, San Francisco's like only 50-something miles. But if you're sitting in traffic, will that affect the battery if you're sitting, on 101 gridlock, waiting to move?
when you're stopped, it's completely silent because it's not using juice. Now, you've got accessories going full blast and so on, you'll lose a little bit of power.
So
but
70
not much.
miles, and then there's an upgrade for 130. And then charging mechanisms. How
Plug
does
it
it
in.
charge? Just
Plug it into
so
the
no
wall.
extra additional charging station to be bought, or any adapters for the house.
Yeah, so you can if you want to charge from a level 2 charging station, you can get a faster rate charge. But particularly for the home use case scenario where you have you pull it into the driveway and you're going to leave it parked overnight, you can just plug it into a normal 110 outlet and have a full tank every morning.
So when you started this, was there a particular technology that stood out, or did you guys create your own completely different?
The thesis behind Arcimoto really was not initially technology focused. It was all about only in so much as the platform architecture itself comprises a new sort of design topology for vehicles. But it was really all about delivering something with existing technology that was simply much lighter weight and much more efficient. If you need to move 4,000 pounds of vehicle down the road at high speed and with great acceleration, that requires really cutting edge future tech to get into a reasonable price range. But if you're really talking about daily driving, a reasonable short range vehicle that is 1,000 pounds, you can use really old tech and still deliver a great experience. Now, that being said, as the electric vehicle industry has really started to flourish and the technology underpinnings of that have really moved forward, we have pushed on to the forefront of that as well.
So I'm going to pull up another slide right now, which I think we're going to look at. Yeah, so talk about accessories, and this is basically your steering here, right?
Yep. Yeah, so we've moved the vehicle to a handlebar steering, which was the major solution for ergonomic packaging. This vehicle will carry 2 people.
So what are we
in
looking
comfort.
at here then? So we're looking at the steering
Yeah, so
and
that's the handlebar steering. You have the throttle on the right and the brake on the right hand. So it's a go, stop on the right hand. You have blinkers on the left, and then there's a pedal that you can't see that's the floor brake for hydraulic. You can put your iPhone or Android phone there on the little holder there for navigation. So instead of dueling up things and putting navigation and purchasing that in the vehicle, you already have it in your phone. Just stick it on the handlebar.
and we can pull that down. And then I have a couple more photos that we're going to pull up in a second here. Hard tarp versus canvas versus, let's pull those up right now. So it comes with a base, and this is not the base, right? This one here.
So no, this is a concept rendering of what it'll look like with a hard shell door.
Okay.
And we're still actually in the process now of developing that door structure. But the idea is very similar to what you would have with a Jeep or a side-by-side or something like that, where on a nice day, take the doors off. It's incredibly fun to drive. You really get that.
And you have the option for canvas right now.
Yeah, so soft or hard shell.
Okay.
Both of those are going to be options.
Okay.
And will give you, the ability to have either a lightweight cover that you can roll up and throw in a bag, or really more of a hard shell assembly that you would be a little bit more involved to take off and put back on.
So you guys live up in Oregon,
Yes.
right? Washington, Oregon, both in Oregon.
Oregon.
So for we got a little rain this year, but for California, the last few years we haven't had a lot of rain, so you may not want that option to
Yeah,
have the cover.
yeah.
But up there, you get a lot of rain, right? So
Yeah, Bay Area and south, you're going to be driving it open. You'll just leave it that way. And even if it's raining, it's not that big a deal,
Right.
because you have the full overhead fairing. That does an amazing job of keeping you dry, even in a reasonable downpour. I think if you live somewhere in a colder, wetter climate, you're going to probably want to put the sides on for some part of the year. But it's just an awesome experience on a nice day.
let's bring another slide up. Is there going to be an option for 3 or 4 seaters too? So is this the idea of the hard?
Yeah,
hard
this is actually
sides?
this is what we're calling the deliverator.
Okay.
So in this version of the vehicle, we actually take the back seat out, and the entire back end of the vehicle becomes storage. And you could think of it as pizza delivery or small parcel delivery, or the food on the go or whatever. So that's really more of a fleet option. we have a 4-seater option that is just buying 2 of them.
Okay, cool. So later on, maybe there'll be plans for.
We actually, if you look out at the vehicle landscape, there are plenty of folks going after 4 seats, 5 seats, 7 seats, and so on. That's really not the problem that Arcimoto was created to solve. Arcimoto was created to optimally solve the way people use cars today, which is almost entirely 1 and 2 people traveling around a relatively short distance. The rest of the car industry is doing a great job of solving the other 10% of the problem.
I'm going to pull up another slide now, and we've only got about 10 minutes left. This is some employees that you guys have? And
a couple of our engineers.
Okay.
Joe Vlackman-Curl is standing. He is a brilliant mechanical engineer. Cara Marquis, super sharp electrical engineer, and sort of represent the 2 real challenges of building an electric vehicle, because it's a fusion project between electronics and mechanical bits that go around in circles.
And how many people do you have working there now?
Right now we're 17 people.
17, okay. So you've
It's
grown.
an amazing team of people.
So in the very beginning, how many did you have, and how's that grown then?
In the beginning it was a few of us in an old warehouse bolting together a kit vehicle. So it's gone from there to some just really sharp engineers, designers, and folks telling the story.
And I kind of know the answer to this because you talked about it a little bit at the EVE group, but do you think you'll partner when you're growing, or are you going to try to stay within your own group, or how do you think you'll grow in the future?
I mean, the reality is any vehicle company requires a massive level of partnership on whether you're talking about the actual production of the vehicle, because what we're really doing is integrating components from all over the place. There's the custom stuff that we build that holds it all together, but we're partnering with suppliers all over the country, and in some cases all over the world, to actually build the product. And then when it comes to selling the vehicle, distributing it, and so on, we see a ton of opportunity for partnership, both with existing vehicle companies and then with other companies that you wouldn't necessarily think of as on-road vehicle companies.
So I'm going to ask you both of these questions really quick because we've got 5 minutes left. Challenges that you've had, how you've overcome them, and then your biggest accolades. What's been the biggest wins for you?
I think one of the interesting challenges from a product standpoint is how people perceive it and what they need. And we look out in the world and we see these giant vehicles carrying us around, and it's hard for people to imagine that a ultra efficient vehicle that would carry you would solve the problem of transportation. And to answer the question of the 4 seats, if you drive in San Francisco and you see the carpool lane empty, and then you see 6 lanes packed, that means that all of those vehicles that are stuck on the freeway are carrying 1 person. So it's that mind shift of what we actually need and how to solve the problems that are ahead of us in the future.
And then your biggest wins, I guess, are.
Go for it.
So on the problem side, I would say the biggest problem that we had, or that I experienced in the project, was getting to the end of Generation 7 and not getting to the product. Right, landing 7 iterations, 7 years into the process, and going, this isn't it, and we don't know how to get it to where it needs to be. Finding the way through that, ultimately the breakthrough that became Generation 8 was just a huge win. In terms of accolades, it's been just really heartening to see the early feedback that we've had from the new alpha prototypes on the road. CES was kind of our first big reveal of the new prototypes, and the press that came out of there was just uniformly positive about the ride experience, and that actually even filtered down to some engineers who were longtime automotive part supply company engineers who just sort of said, you guys are actually solving the real problem, and that felt really good.
Let's pull up the community slide now. And is there something that you guys need from the community right now? Is there, do you need more people to write about you? Are you in need of funding now? Is there some need that you're saying, hey, we need some free office space in Silicon Valley, whatever it might be?
Actually,
That's funny.
having a good crash pad to stay in Silicon Valley would be very cool. So if anybody out there has a spare room and an outlet to plug
you hooked
into.
me up with one of your prototypes to run around, and I've got a couple extra bedrooms.
Perfect.
So there we go.
But otherwise, it's just all of the above. We're continuing to look for early adopters of the vehicle. We've had great success so far with our reservation program. We are in a staged fundraising program as well that will ultimately have a public component to it. And so and then helping to spread the word.
Yep.
So folks who check out what we're doing and want to share it with their friends, that's
So
that's
more,
a lot of how
and
we're
that
getting
leads
forward.
me to the next slide. Let's bring that up. More events like the EVE where you get to come talk and have people test drive it. People can go, we can pull that down. This is, you were just speaking there, I guess, a month ago.
Yeah.
And people can go to your website and request test drives. Is that correct?
And actually, funny thing about that is Sven, who was at that event and talked about the charging setup at his house.
Yeah.
We're actually going to be doing a test drive event in front of his house next week.
That's awesome. So you're looking to do more events in Silicon Valley.
Yep.
And hosting your own. Are you doing monthly talks or anything like that as well, or?
It's ending up being about on a monthly basis. So we're sort of traveling all over the place, spreading the word.
So I'm getting the 1 minute. Is there any final thoughts that you guys want to leave us with?
I'd like to say that, on the what could we use? I think just believing that we can solve the problems that are ahead of us, and start looking at things in that light. Like, how does this improve my life and other people's life? And believe in what we're doing.
I'm getting the closing sign. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
joining
so much.
us.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and to the audience, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, svtags.org. Hopefully you guys can come join us for a meetup and make this a great tags week by conserving, rethinking, and reusing the way that you live here in Silicon Valley beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.